Hi everyone, Union Man. And in this episode, we'll be discussing the overdependence on union leadership. Unfortunately, AFGE gives way too much power to the local presidents because of the poorly written national constitution. And actually, it's not poorly written, but in practice, it allows for bad actors to manage the unions. And so you end up with a position where somebody who doesn't care, doesn't have heart, can't write a grievance to save their lives, couldn't spell the word ULP, they're the ones who are representing your medical doctors at the Department of Veterans Affairs, for example. So as a doctor, you're getting railroaded, steamrolled by management. You go up to somebody who's the elected official, and that elected official may not even have a high school education. GS5, GS7, nothing wrong with those grades at all. But the truth of the matter is that in practice, AFGE and the locals keep electing people who wouldn't be qualified at the most basic administrative jobs there are. And so ultimately, employees find themselves, when you really need the union, being represented by people who have no business being in those positions. And why is that? Well, first, employees are supposed to be paying their dues in order to vote. And if you want to have a voice, you need to start showing up to the monthly meetings and holding your elected officials accountable. So in theory, the Constitution says, the Constitution is set up in a way that allows the membership to have more power than the president's. So if a lot of people, other than the clique, because the elected officials oftentimes have their little clique, their posse, that will show up to the meetings, if they even have meetings, and they're supposed to. Again, it's only once a month. I'm not asking for a lot. It's just once a month. Show up to the monthly meetings. You must be a dues-paying member to show up. And you show up and you hold your elected officials accountable. That's not being done. And the local's supposed to have more, the membership is supposed to have more power than the president. And that is not what happens. People say, well, the worst thing federal employees say is, how come nobody ever told me that, right? I hear that often. How come nobody ever told me that? Nobody ever explained that to me. Well, I'm explaining it to you, Union Man here. And it is in the National Constitution. It's in writing. It's just that people don't want to read. And that's, well, some people don't have time to read all that. So, yeah. So the locals are being, not all of them, the locals are being run by people who should really not be there. Not all of them, but you have quite a few locals where the president is incompetent, the vice president's incompetent, the treasury secretary is incompetent. And those people, in some cases, don't want to be there to help the people, to represent people. In some cases, they're afraid of management. And oftentimes, there are screw-ups. And sadly, the union attracts the screw-ups because, well, if you didn't need union representation, that you really wouldn't know where the union office is unless the union was doing their job and giving the orientations and explaining all that. And oftentimes, the union leadership positions carry great power because that president will be sitting at the bargaining table addressing matters with that hospital center director. And again, that person may be a GS5 or a GS7, and now here they are talking to SCSs and GS15s who are treating them as their equal in some cases, or pretending to, because they have to by law, because they're at that level. In fact, any union steward is equal to the highest supervisor at the bargaining table, and that's, was designed. But some presidents want to monopolize the power, and for example, they'll be the only ones who allow themselves and don't allow anyone else to engage with top management at the medical centers. So the issue, again, is leadership. And right now, AFGE, from the very highest levels at the national level to the district, not all districts, but there are some district national vice presidents who have no business being there. And if you have been a dues pay member for at least 3 years and are currently in good standing and all that, you want to have a GS-15 job, go ahead and run for the national vice president position. Just have heart. Don't be afraid. Be a good leader, and run for that position. You want to know how to run for the national vice president position, you need to email the national VA office, try to get a hold of somebody there and ask for a declaration of candidacy, and start your campaign. The people in office right now, not all of them, but there are some that they just need to go, and they keep running unopposed. So if you want to get yourself a GS-14 paying job, running an entire district, you should go ahead and do that, because that needs to happen. And please, if you don't have the heart, don't bother running. And so I'll just put that out there. The current leadership is lacking, and AFGE has been dealing with a lot of corruption. The last national vice president had to walk out, and of course the media got it as of corruption, allegations of sexual harassment, J. David Cox. And so, all you have to do is go ahead and Google the word embezzlement, AFGE, fraud, indictment, and you'll find many examples of people who shouldn't be in those positions, doing things that they're not supposed to do, finding themselves in bad situations. And again, a lot of that is attributed to the fact that you, as a dues-paying member, are not attending your meetings, are not voting for running for office. Run for your local offices if you're competent, intelligent, have heart, and integrity. If you don't have any of those, or all of them, really, please don't listen to anything I'm saying right now. But if you do, go for it. We need that. We need representation. So here's where I was going with overdependency on AFGE on the union. Did you know that you can file your own grievance? Did you know that your coworker, who may be better at this, who may not be a union steward, can file a grievance on your behalf? Yes, that is correct. So long as you authorize your coworker can file a grievance on your behalf. Did you know that you can file an unfair labor practice charge on your own? Yes, anyone can file a ULP. Anyone. But you have to understand the nuances of the process, etc., the law. There's a lot that goes to it. And in reality, that's really what most of us have at the local level. We need to find out, we need to empower, and that's why I make these videos, and hoping to empower you to start filing your own grievances to enforce a contract. Because if your president is too busy not doing that, then it falls on you. You can start filing your grievances, start filing ULPs, and become an EEO rep. That's another great one. You can be a personal representative and help your coworker file EEO complaints. You'll have to get educated on the EEO process, and you do get official time for that. That's not official time under the negotiated procedures. That's official time under EEO MD 110, Management Director 110. So you can start filing EEO cases on behalf of your coworkers. And believe me, we need a lot of EEO reps in the VA because management just, it's not like DOD. DOD has a zero tolerance policy against discrimination. Unfortunately, the VA doesn't treat discrimination as serious as DOD. So, there's a lot of ways that you can have that protection. You should. Because when you file a ULP, for example, an unfair labor practice at the FLRA, the Federal Labor Relations Authority, that's considered a protected activity. When you're representing your coworker, not as a union steward, but as a personal representative, that is considered a protected activity. When you're filing EEO cases, or you're helping your coworker, representing them in the EEO procedures, that is a protected activity. Management cannot fire you or retaliate against you in any way, shape, or form if you're engaged in these duties because of those duties. Well, because you're engaging in those duties. They cannot do that. And sadly, the union, when employees come up to them and say, I need help with the EEO case, all they do is say, go talk to EEO. Not all of them. Some locals are better than others. But that's the sad reality. The union should be saying, no. Not only will we walk you over to that EEO office, but we'll be there all the way. And if you're a dues pay member, and you were a dues pay member as of that time that the EEO allegation occurred, we're going to go ahead and refer this case over to the district national office, the district office, and sign the paperwork and coordinate it with the Women's and Fair Practices coordinator, and see about getting you a judge assigned to your case. Yeah, AFGE has pretty much a law firm full of AFGE attorneys, very good attorneys, by the way, who, depending if you meet the requirements for representation by them, and you'll have to talk to your local president on that matter. If you meet the requirements, guess what? You don't need a lawyer. You don't need to hire one. You've got an AFGE lawyer who's going to take your case. Now, there's requirements for it. It has to be, I forget what the paperwork says, but it has to be substantial or significant. And they'll take your case. Hey, you're paying dues. Get the lawyers. And unfortunately, going back to why the president has way too much power, I think in those forms, the president has to sign it, and then your national vice president will have to sign it. That's way too much power, in my opinion, to give one person. Actually, two in this case. Especially when they're not doing what they're supposed to. Which, unfortunately, happens. So, but yeah, start filing grievances, enforce the contract. Enforce that contract. That's what the grievance is about, is to enforce the contract. And if we don't have people filing grievances trying to enforce that contract, might as well not have a contract. And then same thing with the ULPs. If your and here's a simple example, right? If your supervisor says, hey, we're moving you from this office to the other office, that is a change of conditions of employment. They're supposed to go up to the union and to bargain over it. If they didn't do that, which in most cases they don't, because the supervisors aren't really trained in any of this, and they move you to their office, you can file unfair labor practice charge. It's not that hard. Fill out the form and submit it to the FLRA. And, the remedy won't be substantial. It would, most cases, the agency will say, oops, we're sorry, we'll go ahead and bargain it with the president. And then here's where you run into the conundrum, where the agency will send a notification to the president, and the president simply will sign off on it. Unfortunately, you have some of those people out there, a lot of traitors. They'll just sign off on it and say, yeah, okay, I don't care. Go ahead, move this person from point A to point B. At that point, you find yourself in a very odd position. Hey, you can go up to the president and say, why did you do that? Can't really do anything to him or her at that point until it's time for re-election. And like I said, the terms in AFGE are for no more than 3 years. And guess what? Most of them are 3 years. So you have a rotten apple as the president who just destroys the membership, because people get really frustrated. They go, why am I paying money every month or every pay period for a union that's not representing, they're not doing anything? And of course, all the people get disgruntled. They start pulling out of the union. And the people who knew about their bad behavior, now during the next election, they don't get to vote. And so that's one of the methods that the rotten apples use, is they just frustrate you, the good people, to the point to where the people who have any complaints, guess what? Any complainers, we'll just go ahead and slip you that form so you can stop paying dues. And guess what? You're not a threat to me during the next election. And so, the people who will elect me are the people who I do favors for, et cetera, et cetera. It's very, very, it's a very, very bad system. That's the only thing I can say at this moment. So I encourage everyone to learn how to file their own grievances, to learn how to file your own ULPs, to represent your coworkers. Because believe me, in a lot of these EEO cases, the system is pretty much set up for confusion and to get people get nervous. They screw up. They don't submit documents in a timely manner, one thing or the other, and the EEO cases gets dropped. And there's a lot of issues. I mean, it's a very long process, especially now, since people are not getting help from the unions, because the unions are raising their hands up in the air and going, oh, they took away my official time. So the only place people are going to right now is the EEO for just about a lot of things. And of course, EEO is being cut to shreds by the administration, and they don't have enough judges. And it's bad. The situation is bad, but it starts with you. It starts with you representing your coworkers. It starts with you going to the meetings and holding your elected officials accountable. It starts with you paying dues. And the people who you want to pay dues are the people who have been harmed by the union, especially those people. So if the local president, is a dirtbag, and the people who were around had to deal with it, know that those are the people that you want to be paying dues. Those are people who should not stop paying dues, because during the next election cycle, gone. There you go. Away with the bad rubbish. But unfortunately, people just lose patience, don't know how the system works, and go, I'm not paying dues anymore. My anniversary, I'm pulling out my membership. And that's how it happens. And again, I hope that people start getting engaged. But first, you need to build that security of people who are going to be filing grievances, even if they're not union stewards, so long as you assign them as your representative on individual cases. They can file a grievance for you. And the agency comes up and says, no, I'm not recognizing that person, then file a ULP, because that's a statutory right employees have in order to be able to file grievances in the negotiated procedures and have anyone they want as a personal rep. Doesn't have to be a union person, especially when the unions are the ones that are, in many cases, a problem. So I advise people, don't fall for the drug deals. Don't fall for the I sent your supervisor an email. You want to see a grievance. Not only do you want to see a grievance, but you want to go to that grievance meeting. You want to be there. I want to see what my representative is saying. And you have the same rights. You have the right to, if you're having a coworker who's not a union steward filing a grievance for you, at least for the VA, the Article 43, the grievance procedures, you're supposed to be meeting in these grievances in person with management. And if the union is representing you, then the union, yourself, and management are supposed to be in that meeting. And I'll make a video in the future on filing grievances, God willing, and how that process works. But yeah, a grievance is a written document that gets handed over to management, and everybody meets that is the proper formal grievance. Yeah, technically a grievance is any complaint, etc., etc. I know the definition. But what I'm talking about in this case is you want a formal grievance. So either a union steward or president or officer or rep can do that for you, or a coworker can represent you. But in terms of the coworker representing you, the exclusive representative, the union, has the right to be present at that discussion. I'll go more into that. There's a lot of nuances, but the fact of the matter is, you should all know how to file a grievance. You should all know about ULPs. You should all know about the EEO process. And that's the only way that we're going to make this place a better place in the world, is if those rights that you do have are enforced. Because it's all about enforceability. It's all about enforceability. So, anyways, go ahead and like and subscribe, and have a great day. We'll see you in the next episode.